Welcome back to another round of discussion of this lovely volume, Called to Community, compiled and edited by Charles Moore. Today we're looking at a really great chapter. It's an extract from Dietrich Bonhoeffer's book, Life Together, where he talks about things that he learned or has or thought about when he formed his own community. And this chapter is on the topic of idealism and disillusionment.
It's also interesting, Rich, because we were just talking about disillusionment in our church gatherings.
Yes, yeah, it was actually very timely. We had an entire meeting where we discussed the topic of disillusionment because some people were feeling disillusioned.
And that could also be a factor of winter.
It could also be just the winter blues. Things get a little depressing with the cold and the snow. But anyway, idealism. Yeah, so basically Bonhoeffer's point here is that idealism is actually the enemy of community. It's the enemy of Christian fellowship. And what idealism really is when we have an idea of how people should be and how we should be together, and how we should fulfill whatever drove us to community. And Bonhoeffer says the sooner we face the fact that we are unable to meet our ideals, the sooner actually we experience disillusionment, the better.
Yes, and also to me this chapter overall sort of pointed out the awesome permanence of the church and how, through seeking and being humble, we can kind of realize that, not through our own ideals or visions. And I also think it's interesting how he points out how God hates visionary dreaming. And because I always thought that was perhaps a positive thing to try to be a visionary, but it's actually antithetical in a lot of ways to the Sermon on the Mount, and how that eventually, whoever is buying into that, they judge others, they judge their brothers and sisters, they judge God, and eventually they judge themselves, and it's just bound for failure.
Yeah, well, I think anyone who lives in community for any length of time will experience that it becomes very humdrum. It becomes messy. It becomes, doing the same thing over and over again, and there's nothing glorious about it. There's nothing very glorious in faithfully, carrying out the tasks that need to be carried out. And if you had a set of high ideals, high-minded ideas of how community should be, and that we're always going to be experiencing this sort of emotional togetherness, and there's going to be this great vibe, you're going to quickly get disappointed. And then the tendency is, when you're disappointed, you start complaining, right? Why aren't we more this, or why aren't we more that? And often it's, why isn't that person more this way? Why isn't that person getting up early to shovel the paths? Why aren't we doing more for our neighbors? Why aren't we doing, and this is not to say that we should live in complacency, right? It's not that we should live in self-satisfaction, but when your whole mind is sort of consumed with complaints, what you're really doing is you're complaining about your fellow community members, and you're complaining that God hasn't maybe given more, and you're also then you're unhappy with yourself.
Yeah. And you're kind of just bushwhacking spiritually.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to get back to God's path and God's direction, which is often mysterious, and we do have to ask for that to be given to us, and that's also what Bonhoeffer talks about, to be the thankful recipients of what God is giving, and he talks about thankfulness in here. And if we as a fellowship can't be thankful for the small things, the big things will not have a blessing or
Yeah, and really the only thing that we have that holds us together is the forgiveness of sins that we experience through Jesus Christ. So, it's not our own efforts that keep community together. It's really that we are forgiven, that we are given new life, and then we can live together. So it's silly, actually, to complain that other people don't live up to some standard, right? We should actually, if someone, does things that are wrong or lives in a way that annoys us, that's actually an opportunity, Bonhoeffer points out, for us to give thanks. Thus, the very hour of disillusionment with my brother becomes incomparably salutary, because it so thoroughly teaches me that neither of us can ever live by our own words and deeds, but only by the one word and deed which really binds us together, the forgiveness of sins in Jesus Christ. When the morning mists of dreams vanish, then dawns the bright day of Christian fellowship. And I can say, personally speaking, those are the times, the hard times are that you stick through with other people. Those are the times where you really experience the blessing of fellowship. It really is in the hard times that a fellowship proves itself. It's really in the hard times that, as a disciple, Yeah,
and also that it's not our job to assess the state of our fellowship. And that's a theme that I think has continued to come up through the collection here and Called to Community. And Bonhoeffer puts it like this: Christian community is like the Christian sanctification. It is a gift of God which we cannot claim. Only God knows the real state of our fellowship, of our sanctification. What may appear weak and trifling to us may be great and glorious to God. And we've seen that theme through the chapters we've discussed. We don't know. It's God, and we seek His will.
Yeah, we don't know, but we should be confident. We should be confident in our salvation. And I mean, you even go back to the early church, right? You read Paul's letters to the Corinthians, where he admonishes them for pretty uncool things that are happening in their fellowship, but at the same time he says, you are the chosen. You have been called out. This chapter is very worth reading. In fact, the whole book, Life Together, is worth reading and taking in, because even though Bonhoeffer's little community didn't last very long, obviously he was martyred by the Nazis. And I believe the community disintegrated under the pressure of persecution. He gained some extremely valuable and practical insights for any of us who seek to live together. So thanks for watching. Look forward to talking next week.